Hey there, welcome back to another YouTube video. We're so happy to have you join us again and take all of your free time to hang out with us. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Jessica. We are the Certified Occupational Therapy Assistants with Harkla, and today we're going to talk about crawling, why it's important, and ways to help facilitate crawling.
Now, if you don't have a baby right now, don't click off of this video because we are here to tell you why you have an older child who needs to crawl immediately and why you, an adult, needs to crawl immediately as well.
We do have some other resources on this topic of crawling, why we believe it is so important for infants to crawl and to not skip crawling, but also why it's so important for toddlers and even older children to get on the floor and crawl every once in a while.
Yeah, I'll never forget, this is like kind of a backstory, but I remember I was pregnant with Austin, my second little kiddo, and I got this pamphlet of information from my midwife, and she was like, okay, read all this. And I started reading it, and it was like, crawling is as innate as blinking. We need to crawl in order to get the baby into the right position. And so the article was just telling me about how important it is to crawl. And I was just so happy to be reading that because as a therapist, my goal is to get everybody to crawl. And I just thought it was so cool to crawl if you are pregnant, to crawl if you are 70, to crawl if you are 2. Just crawl.
We will link all of our different resources down in the description. Podcast episodes, other videos, maybe some research articles that talk about the benefits of crawling. So if you want to learn more about the why, you can dive into those. But let's briefly talk about some of the implications that might happen if an infant skips crawling.
The first one is retained reflexes. A big part of the STNR, the ATNR development is crawling and rocking and preparing to crawl. So in order to integrate those reflexes, we need to get crawling. And if we don't, if we skip that phase or that milestone, we can see these retained reflexes show up later on.
Another thing that might happen is challenges later in life with coordinating the upper and lower body movements. This is called bilateral coordination, and we use bilateral coordination for things like running, for things like riding a bicycle or climbing or swinging. You know, recently my son has gotten really good at swinging on the playground swing, and as I'm watching him, I'm like, this is taking a lot of coordination with his legs and his upper body. And so if your infant's not crawling, if they skipped crawling, there could be some implications in that bilateral coordination piece.
Another one is fine motor skills. A big part of crawling is developing the palmar arches, building the upper body strength, the core strength. And if we're not crawling, we can see delays in those fine motor skills later on.
Going along with that, there could also be delays in those upper body strength and core strength components as well because they're not weight bearing, they're not activating their trunk if they're skipping crawling, so there's going to be some delays there as well.
The last one is you can also see reading and writing challenges. The big part of crawling is coordinating the ocular motor movements, the vision, and we often see kiddos struggle with those reading and writing activities when they either have skipped crawling or they didn't crawl in that good quadruped position. So definitely some academic skills that can be impacted by not crawling. Who knew?
I was also just thinking there's a lot of sensory components that go along with crawling. So when your infant's crawling, they're getting a lot of proprioceptive feedback to their joints as they're moving and, you know, pushing into the ground with their arms and their legs. They're getting a lot of visual-vestibular input as they look around their environment and, you know, get their head into different position changes. So lots of sensory components, even tactile input, you know, with their hands on the ground, their legs are on the ground. So we can also potentially see challenges with sensory processing later in life.
Here are 6 tips to try if your child skipped crawling.
The first tip might sound silly or obvious, I don't know, but the first tip is to just have your child crawl. So incorporate crawling into their daily routine, into their sensory diets, into their obstacle courses. Make some tunnels around the house, whether you have like the pop-up tunnels or the Lycra tunnels, or if you make your own tunnels using chairs and blankets, but just encourage your child to get down and crawl. And when your child is crawling, make sure you're encouraging good crawling form. So on hands and knees, making sure you're getting that reciprocal opposite arm and leg movement with crawling, as well as making sure that the hands are flat on the ground, the fingers are facing forward, they're activating all of their muscles throughout their core and upper body. They're able to move their head and look up and down and side to side while they're crawling. So just encouraging that crawling that maybe they skipped in infancy.
I was going to add, I think one of the most important parts about this first tip is not just crawling, but get down on the floor with them and crawl with them and make it into a game. Maybe you're playing a card game or a game with Legos or something, and you put some things on one side of the room and the other things on the other side of the room, and you have to crawl back and forth with your child, and maybe you make it into a race or a game, or maybe they ride on your back and you play pony. It's Trip's favorite game right now. But crawling for you, the adult, is also really beneficial, not just for your child. Okay, number 2 is to incorporate animal walks. So we love animal walks, bear walks, wheelbarrow walks, crab walks, elephant walks, zebra walks, horse walks.
Anything you can come up with.
Whatever animal your child likes, do a walk like that. Get those hands open, those elbows forward, make sure they're not hyperextended. Make sure they're not like totally rotated around. Just make sure that you are making it fun and silly, and you include sound effects. That helps.
The next one is to do more climbing activities. So this is really going to work on that bilateral coordination to coordinate the upper body and the lower body together. So the first one that comes to mind is rock climbing. So whether you go to like a rock climbing gym, or maybe you find a playground that has a small rock wall to climb on. You can also do like rope climbing. That can be a fun challenge, very challenging for a lot of people. But any type of climbing, you can even do climbing up the slide at the playground. That's a good coordination activity as well.
The next one is a very specific exercise. You might be familiar with it if you do yoga, but it's the cat-cow exercise. And this is our favorite go-to for integrating or helping to integrate the STNR, so the symmetrical tonic neck reflex. And so this is a simple activity. You are on your hands and your knees, and you look up to the sky and you say moo, and then you look down at your knees and you arch your back like a mad cat and you say meow, and you do that maybe 5 or 10 times. And again, this is a great one to do with your child. You can incorporate visuals, so maybe you can have a visual chart in front of them and then down below their knees. So each time they're looking up, they are looking and saying the letter or the color, and then they look down and they say the number, and then they go back and forth reading the chart. So incorporating different visual activities simultaneously will be even better.
The next one is to do more visual-vestibular integration activities. So this is coordinating your vision with your head position changes or your head movements. And this is a really important piece when your child is crawling, because they are leading with their eyes and moving their head in different positions. So incorporate more visual-vestibular into their daily play activities. You can do things like robot zapping, where you're standing in front of the wall, you're turning your body and rotating to touch something on the wall behind you. You can do activities like over-unders with a partner, where you have a ball and you reach up above your head to grab the ball, and then you go down below your legs to grab the ball or pass the ball to your partner.
The last one is more bilateral integration activities, because like we mentioned, when you are crawling, it requires a lot of that bilateral coordination. So things like bird dogs, when you are on your hands and your knees and you extend the opposite arm and leg simultaneously and then switching. Cross crawls are another favorite as well, touching your opposite elbow to your opposite knee while you're standing or while you're laying, doing those bicycle crunches. Jumping jacks are great. Any way that you are working both sides of the body simultaneously can be really helpful for those crawling skills.
So these are all great activities to incorporate, like we said, into the sensory diet routine or obstacle courses at home. Definitely really great to incorporate into the treatment plan if you're a therapist working with kiddos in a clinic setting. If you're a teacher or educator in the schools, you can incorporate these activities into transitions and sensory breaks in the school day. Now, for anyone who has an infant at home or is going to have an infant at home, here are a couple of tips that you can use to help facilitate crawling and make sure that your child doesn't skip crawling.
We just went through all of these with Austin, so these are all fresh in my mind.
Okay, go.
The first one is to create obstacles for your child to crawl over, especially if they're army crawling. Have them crawl over your legs to grab your coffee cup. We know babies love like things that aren't theirs. So Austin will just crawl back and forth over my legs in order to grab something. So that's an easy one to incorporate.
The next one is to put your child, your infant, on their back, and you're going to use a ball or a balloon or maybe just your hands to have them kick and push off. And this is going to get their legs up against gravity, and they're going to have to coordinate their legs and their feet to hit or kick whatever you're holding up for them. This is really going to work on some great core strength as well as some hip strengthening.
If your child is maybe crawling, but maybe they have a janky leg crawl where they have one leg out to the side like a kickstand, crawling up the stairs could be really helpful. Having them alternate with their legs, which leg they're pushing off on, is really great for their hip strength and their core strength and that bilateral coordination. And then another one is helping them to facilitate rock in prone. So prior to crawling, they're probably on their hands and their knees and they are rocking. We want to facilitate that to help integrate that STNR. So just help them facilitate at their trunks, kind of help kind of push them a little bit so they can get that rocking motion.
And then the last one is to do different activities on a round or peanut-sized therapy ball. So having your child do tummy time on the therapy ball, have them lay on their back on their therapy ball so they're getting a lot of vestibular input, and then also having them sitting on the therapy ball, you're supporting them at their hips, and you're bouncing and you're moving them slowly forwards and backwards, side to side, so you're getting a lot of core work here.
Okay. Those are our top tips for crawling. Just so you know, we definitely feel like this is a milestone that should not have been removed from the CDC milestone update. So whether or not you have heard about that, just make sure that you are continuing to have your child crawl. It is very important.
Yes, it is. If you like this video, make sure you let us know by liking this video, leave a comment with the thing you liked the most, share this video with a friend, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Just a reminder, if you are concerned with your child's development in any way at all, make sure to talk to your pediatrician about an occupational therapy evaluation, because when in doubt, rule it out. Better safe than sorry.
Make sure you follow us on social media. We're at Harkla_family, as well as All Things Sensory Podcast.
If you haven't already listened to it, we've got hundreds of episodes. It is All Things Sensory Podcast because we talk about all things sensory, and we love it. And you can find it on all of the major podcast platforms. And make sure you subscribe.
I think that's it. So we'll talk to you next week.
Okay, bye. Get down and do it.
Get down and do it.
Can't say that.
Okay.
Down and do it.